So I am happy to announce and help host this amazing project. It's called the Alexandria Project, and you have Adatoms or Andreas, who is a physical chemistry PhD student and a founder of the Alexandria Project, as well as Dave, who is an anthropologist PhD student and researcher. And I can't wait for you all to understand what it is that they've been doing, because there's a tremendous amount of innovation already going on in Web3 around academia. So take it away, guys.
Thank you a lot, Bella, for that introduction. They have been very nice for inviting us and hosting everything. So thank you a lot for that. Notes, it's a pleasure as always to be with you and with everyone here listening and watching. I hope you enjoy this.
Yeah, hello everybody. Welcome. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to day 2 of the Academic Web3 Conference. Very cool to be here. The first day that we had was really awesome. A lot of great insight from everyone, and so many important topics that were mentioned, and we're hoping to keep the conversation going in any regard. And you know, during the course of our discussion here, if anyone has any questions, feel free to add them in the chat, or you know, come up. I don't know what the mechanics are for joining as a speaker, but you're most definitely welcome to come join the stage as well with us. We want to keep it kind of open and inviting for all people. So welcome everybody, and thank you again.
Thanks for that, Buddy. We are going to be talking today about some very important topic for both of us, Notes and myself, which is decentralizing peer review, education, and publication in blockchain. So as a quick note on what we're going to be discussing today, first of all, we are going to be introducing ourselves so that you know better who Notes is and who I am. We are also going to be talking about the history, about the great Alexandrian library, which inspires this whole project. We will present you our solution, the Alexandria Project, and show you our collection, which we are most proud of. And then we will do a quick recap on how this is all possible and take a quick look into the technology making this all available.
So yeah, first we just wanted to do some quick introductions. So my name is Dave Paulson, and I'm a PhD candidate in anthropology. Currently working this semester as an adjunct instructor, so doing that adjunct grind. Shout out to all those people moving and grooving in this fall 2022. And I'm also an alumnus of the Fulbright program, where I did my doctoral dissertation research abroad in Vietnam for 2 years. And so yeah, I'm gonna speak to kind of my journey and also to my experience in building in Web3 with all of you. So if you go to the next slide, if you'd like. Again, my research is in anthropology, so my major concerns are those related to culture. And my work is specifically focused on language endangerment and cultural revitalization, where I've spent 2 years of my life in Vietnam with the Cham community there, and their local efforts to preserve elements of their ancestral heritage, specifically language. And if you can go to the next slide, Ada Adams. What we're going to be talking about today is some things that inspired me. What really brought me into Web3 was thinking about ways that I might combine some of this doctoral dissertation research in this new emerging space called Web3. And it really inspired me to start thinking about ways we could indigenize the blockchain, and that is to go beyond the English language and start thinking through ways that we might have a more diverse representation in the space. And it inspired me to mint some of the aspects of my dissertation. So this is a figure from one of my dissertation chapters that talks about an indigenous calendar system found in Vietnam. And this really is what started getting the ball rolling for me into building and creating so many other things that we're here today to talk about. So if you could go to the next slide, Ada Adams. Yeah, so my work in Web3, I started just playing around, and we're from a blockchain called Cardano, which is a bit different from Ethereum. And I started, I guess, on Ethereum, but I fell into Cardano with the academic focus and started building some fun NFT collections related to education, thinking about how to use digital assets as learning tools themselves. And that has evolved into various community archives of events and experiences, as well as learning tools that we're going to be talking about today. So that's kind of a brief introduction to my journey and what's brought everything together that we're very excited to talk about.
Beautiful. Well, in my case, my name is Halabi, Andros Halabi. I am also a PhD student, but I am studying my PhD in physics, physical chemistry to be more precise. I have wide experience teaching science subjects, and I currently work as a chemist too. And I am one of the creators and educators in the Cardano ecosystem, continuously pushing for more accessibility in terms of knowledge. Some of the things you can find in my Atoms project, which was built as a way of supporting science decentralization. For example, a percentage of all the proceeds go to scientific foundations, is that not only we have a beautiful NFT collection that you can collect and trade with, but we also have a series of podcasts concerning scientific knowledge at a high level, for example, chemistry, physics. We go from the most very basic of what a force is or what a vector is, up to the most complex subjects to understand, like electromagnetism and how that might impact your life. We also have a series of podcasts on philosophy and on chemistry, for example. Financial education has also been one of the focus of my project, as I noticed that for many people, even thinking about getting more scientific knowledge or more nature knowledge, so to say, is simply unthinkable just because of financial conditions that don't allow them to do so. So this is my grain of sand for the cause. So now the question is, why Alexandria? We are going to be talking today about the Alexandria Project, and the question is, why would we name it this way? And here my friend Nuts will give us a few ideas on what the Alexandria Library was and why it was such a tragic incident.
Yeah, the Alexandria Library is part of some of the great history of scholarship and human understanding that existed in a place called Alexandria, Egypt. And it's quite famous, and I'm sure that many of us here have heard about this location and this story. But just to note, it was one of the great ancient storehouses of knowledge that is dated from the early 200s BCs and is something that over time and over generations contained up to 400,000 noted papyrus scrolls in this one storehouse of collective knowledge. Some really famous names of different people, like Archimedes had studied there for some really noteworthy inventions. And then it was burned to the ground eventually. And the exact details of this, I think, are a hot topic of debate among historians and others about the precise mechanics. But the point is that it was lost over time, either burned down directly or abandoned gradually and then lost. But the reason that it has become so noteworthy in pop culture and also in academic fields like history is one of the amount of information that was lost in this type of establishment. And so we thought about this really pressing issue in terms of how could we secure human knowledge in ways that will make it stay there for the ages and prevent something like a second Alexandrian library tragedy from happening again. And Web3 for us was something that we really thought presents a lot of very interesting, innovative, and creative opportunities to try and build in that regard.
And this,
yeah.
And this effort is what brought us to the Alexandria Project, which the nice thing about using Web3 is you cannot burn this one down. So what is the Alexandria Project? It is a multidisciplinary, transferable, permanent, and decentralized safekeeping of knowledge. We want to do the same that the Alexandrian Library tried to do in the past, but better, using current technology. It is hosted in the most decentralized proof-of-stake blockchain called Cardano, and our collection includes a wide variety of topics, namely art, music, literature, sciences, finances, economics, documentaries, films, workshops, podcasts, and much more. Now,
yes.
Nuts will give us a quick overview of what a Cardano native asset is.
Yeah, so as Ada Adams mentioned, this library collections that we've been building and growing over the last year is one that's made up of something called a native asset on Cardano. And just wanted to give a brief primer because we got into some tech discussions yesterday about on-chain and off-chain things and what those might mean. And I just wanted to note that native assets on Cardano are how NFTs are structured. So it's a bit different from what we might be used to in the Ethereum space, where each thing is tied to a smart contract. In the case of Cardano, presents just an interestingly different approach where the native assets are at the base layer, just like the cryptocurrency itself. And what's distinct about them is not only the ways that they're structured kind of natively, as I mentioned, but also to the size of these different things, right? So as you know, when you make an NFT on Ethereum and so many other amazing blockchains that we all have loved and enjoyed over the past few years, you can get like basically a reference to somewhere off-chain and then a little bit of metadata. And in Cardano, we have a really large playing field. It's a great playground of space to put into these different native assets. And you can see from here the metadata that we put into a character count. One basically maxed out at 16,810 characters. So there's like a lot of room to play around in that space from a creative point of view. And if you go to the next slide, Ada Adams, and see the ways that we've been looking around at using this creative toolbox or sandbox or playground in different ways, is trying to structure it with the perspective of authorship and publication, right? So using that space, 16 kilobytes might seem like it's very small, but if you look down here at our metadata, we've structured it in terms of paragraphs, right? So we're thinking about the composability of Web3 in different areas of innovation and how we might structure that to fit into prospects for new forms of publication.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I just wanted to quickly point out that Notes and one of our friends, Disgrace Live, have been basically pioneers in this aspect of turning this very complex metadata into some very nice, user-friendly and readable type of asset. So, sorry, Nets, go on, please.
Yeah, and so what we're going to talk about today is the meaning of that. When you have this amount and type of information in something like a native asset in a blockchain, what it presents for the enduring promises of the future kind of thing, right? And I think in a lot of cases we talked about, I love the POEPs that have been here so far and all of the different innovations that people are building. And what we've done with these is not to make like NFTs out of these things, but to make them into fungible tokens, right? So fungible tokens, as we know, in Ethereum are like ERC20 tokens. You can get the BAT token or the MANA token or the whatever it might be. And those are a smart contract asset that you can have and trade between wallets. And with the composability of different things in this way, what we're essentially able to do is make an unlimited amount of assets with whatever it is that you would like to put in them, right? And so we're trying to build them, and we've been creating these fungible tokens in magnitudes of the millions, and we've been making what we call a Satoshi-sized library. So kind of poking fun at the notion of digital scarcity and having fun with digital abundance, making 21 million copies of different articles and podcasts and all different types of things. And what we would hope to do with this is to create not the library per se, like in Web3, but a library. And we're really, really driven to inspire others to develop, first and foremost, blockchain literacy. That is the skill sets needed to become their own publishers in this distinct moment in time, and to build libraries of information in different areas and topics for whatever that you might find meaningful in your life.
So with that clear, I think it is time to access the Alexandria Project collection. And for that, I would request the audience to please join us. If you're watching from your computer, please take your cell phone, scan this QR code, or go into pool.pm $learning as it is in the screen, and you will be accessing our full library. What you will be seeing is basically a Cardano blockchain explorer where you will be able to visualize everything we are talking about. So first of all, we wanted to show you a few early proof of concepts that were developed in terms of testing a little bit the capabilities of this technology in a time when we weren't quite sure of what could be done and what couldn't.
If I could really quick before we get into this topic, could you just go back to the, before we get into this real quick, I just wanted to address, we had a great question from the audience from Adam asking how the contract writing on Cardano the progression of Cardano, some kind of dev support team. I'm in Cosmos mostly is why I'm asking. Cross-chaining will be looks like a second question. Thank you. Yeah, so interoperability is definitely something that people on Cardano are building for. But again, to note that these assets don't require smart contracts to be created. They're native assets. So we had NFTs and fungible tokens in March of 2021, and smart contracts are quite new on Cardano, only coming out in September of last year, kind of thing. So there's the notion of interoperability is something that is diverse in our ecosystem, and one of the great leaders in this regard is Sebastian at Milkomeda. I would recommend looking into his work, and I could touch base with you, Adam. Shout out to the Cosmos Adams family over there. Really, really interesting stuff. So we can definitely talk further on that for sure.
Yeah, Cosmos has developed into a very interesting hub. So before we go on with the full work of the library, we wanted just to quickly say that this is inspired in the loving memory of Aaron Schwartz. For those of you that know the history of this man, I am pretty sure you will share the grief and the anger of what was lost here. So I would fully recommend you guys that now that you have access to the library, look out for Aaron Schwartz or look out for Guerrilla or whatever you want here in the title, and you will access this asset and take a read on this. Everyone, in my opinion, in the scientific and academic community has the moral imperative obligation of sharing the knowledge and helping society thrive with that.
Yeah, Aaron Schwartz is amazing. He's a great pioneer in the history of the internet. He created RSS feeds and was a co-founder of Reddit. And there's a great documentary that we could recommend called The Internet's Own Boy, where it kind of goes through the story of his life and the different things that he faced in terms of making information, and particularly academic scholarship, open for different individuals. And he faced a lot of pressures from major institutions because he was very sort of combative against the legacy systems in many ways, but really truly believed in it. And he's a definite inspiration for a lot of our work, and is someone that I would highly recommend checking out if you're working in the professional field of academia. Definitely.
So one of the first assets alongside that Guerrilla manifesto that we minted were the Ouroboros papers. For the ones of you that are not acquainted to Cardano, the whole Cardano blockchain has been developed following a strict scientific method. So basically everything that is going live on the network has prior been peer-reviewed, and the Ouroboros papers are basically that extent of peer-reviewed research that gave the basis for the proof-of-stake mechanism that Cardano uses. So that's very interesting, and with this we proved for the first time for ourselves and maybe for the whole community that it was possible to secure a quite extensive amount of knowledge, 6 or 7 research papers completely inside one single Cardano native asset.
Yeah, and that one speaks to really the kind of necessity. I think innovation is born from necessity in so many amazing ways. And it came from a time period during the fall of last year where people were talking about, where can I find these? They're kind of all over the place. And how can we find kind of a central reference point to share this information? And we figured, well, what if we made it into a native asset and made 69 million of them and then just share them all around with one another? And that really started getting the wheels turning in terms of, well, if we could do this and fit a collection of scholarship inside something like a native asset and kind of sling it and share it all around with each other inside of our wallets, what that might mean for really new, innovative, creative approaches towards publicizing and disseminating information in this way. So we tried some more exploratory things where, okay, well, we've got a collection of things. What would an entire journal publication look like inside of a native asset? So this is kind of our second working proof of concept that we went through, where we took an open source journal and put the entirety of the journal inside native assets on the blockchain, just to see what it might look like from this very basic point of view of getting all the information in there. And we continued along, and then we were like, okay, well, we've got an entire journal publication. What if we put an entire college course inside a native asset? What would that look like? And that inspired us to try this proof of concept with the open courseware from MIT, where you have the Gary Gensler course that many of us have seen in different regards. And so what this is the entire class, but it's inside your wallet kind of thing. So it's got the entire lecture, for the full video in there. It's got the lecture slides as a PDF, has the entire transcript, has the associated readings, and then down in the metadata, you have the course questions kind of things, right? So thinking about new ways that we might, well, if we can publish certain things, what if we can publish assets that are in of themselves learning materials directly inside your wallet? And that really inspired us to start building this library of collections of different things. And it's composed of so many other things in addition to these examples of trying to explore learning materials inside your wallet. And one of those things like open source creative tools, where we have different creative commonly open assets that are owned by us, and we keep them in our library collections wallet, but we open them up for the world to see for whatever reasons that they might want, whether those be creative or commercial in any regard. And people have had a great time with these, creating a number of different artistic projects. There are some different community events where people use these native assets. And it's amazing to see not only the types of creative things that we might produce on in a space called the blockchain, but the ways that it has kind of a life of its own, and it takes on its own life to inspire new creative and collaborative engagements across the space.
Just a quick word about what you're watching now. This one down here, the refresh, is one prime example and one of my favorite examples of the power of the Cardano metadata. So I would suggest you all that have the library open in your mobile phone to look up for refresh and go around playing a little bit with the NFT and check out how amazing it can get. It's not only about art and about academia, like scientific academia, but also about history and historic texts. We can secure some traditional Chinese poetry, while we can also secure the full extent of the US Constitution in a way that no tyrant should be able to modify in the future.
In addition to those, we also have an extensive collection of musical libraries. And as we started to build this, it became something where it's what we envisioned as becoming something where people can go to this wallet collection and kind of explore the possibilities of publishing in a decentralized way and in an immutable fashion. And so we have a whole section of different things in there from different music publications too that people could check out. And this really inspired us to start thinking of this as not only a storehouse of knowledge, but a great onboarding experience for new people into the space. If they're really curious to see the diversity of blockchain publications that you might get, music is one of the most accessible that people might know. And it really is something that turns the light bulb on for many people, seeing the diverse applications and innovations that people have been making.
We also, as mentioned before, have a full college-level financial education course that goes from the very basics of money up to the most complex stuff regarding NFTs and smart contracts, stock markets, shorting strategies, bubbles, prices, whatever you want. And what is also nice about the Alexandrian library, the Alexandria project that we're holding, is that everything is we try to do everything for the widest range of cultures possible. So we are also actively trying to push the boundaries of language a little bit. We don't want only English speakers to be the only ones to have access to this type of decentralized knowledge storage. So we also have some series in Spanish and in Vietnamese and stuff in Chinese, as you have seen before. We also got a master's degree dissertation from the Oxford University that talks about art, NFTs, and how they intertwine in nowadays society. This was done by Eva, a very good friend of ours, and also one of the co-founders and contributors of the Alexandria Project.
Yeah, Ava's work is really cool. If you go back to that really quick, she just did an amazing job. She just finished up her master's degree, and what she did there is a art history master's at Oxford, and was talking about blockchain as an art medium in of itself, and talked about different ways that people are using the platform of the blockchain, not just to store art, not just to store information, but to think about it as the central medium of artistic expression. And so it really fits in with us in terms of thinking about this is not just a storehouse of publication, but is a publication platform and medium in of itself that we'd really like to see innovated and moving forward in so many different ways. And then, of course, she has minted her master's degree and contributed to our library collections as well.
Very proud of her and her work, and also of the work of my friend here, Notes, who helped a brilliant artist called Jogurt Burke into minting the first documentary ever minted as an NFT. So here's Jogurt Burke, and what can you tell us about this one, Notes? What was interesting in this work?
Yeah, this is probably an example of the onboarding experiences that we've had in terms of engaging with people from outside the Web3 space and thinking about ways that their creative work can be brought into the Web3 environment as a whole. And in this case, they had a documentary film, and what's great about these native assets is that you're able to view it directly inside your wallet, right? So it's not like a token-gated platform or centralized in some way. It's directly inside, almost like a Netflix kind of on your phone. And all you need is your seed phrase, and then you have direct access to this material. And for him, it's really inspired a lot of amazing ways to think about the film industry and what film and Web3 might mean for the future. And there's a lot of amazing other examples that we have in these collections as well.
So now we would like to show you some of our own Alexandria Project original creations, like done under our umbrella directly. And the first one we wanted to show you is one of my favorites and one of the highest applications of the technology I have seen, so to say, which is the Poems of Sappho, which is basically a poetry NFT where inside the NFT you have access to a full website dedicated to the various poems of this artist, and you can and you can interact with that very freely, and it's very interactive, and it's a lot of fun to work with this type of tech. Now, because of some technology issues between the IPFS system and the PowerPoint website add-on, we can have the full functionality of the NFTs in the presentation, but I would ask you guys to try it on your own, and you will see how interesting it can be. Now, as a quick reminder, this is not an NFT, rather an FT, as we have over 100,000 copies of it.
And so the ways that kind of a lot of these experiences, they've just been really building on one another. Again, we just started from trying to share a bunch of PDFs together where we didn't have to get everyone's email in the community and try and, some people want to remain anonymous, some don't. And so we made the Ouroboros papers, then we started thinking about classrooms, and we started making learning materials of our own. And over the course of this year, part of the Alexandria Project has been trying to promote blockchain literacy and for people to become their own publisher. Again, be your own publisher for the future. And one of the mints that we're really proud of is this one called This Crazy Kitchen. And what it contains is 6 different workshops that we held on Discord, and we screen recorded all of them. And so we have over 6 hours of video content, and we minted 69 million of those for people. And it's been really amazing to see this get out into the ecosystem because, again, trying to take this approach of how do we fit an entire class inside something like a native asset. There's over 6 hours of media content here with associated reading files for all of the different workshop series. And the topic of this one, of course, is trying to develop blockchain literacy for people to start building assets in their own right. And so that's one of the ones that I think we're most proud of in terms of trying to promote engagement, onboarding, and understanding for the possibilities of a decentralized publishing future.
Beautiful. I'm really keen on this asset in particular, as it basically, if you have never seen anything about blockchain in your life and you suddenly decided you wanted to become an NFT creator artist in the Cardano ecosystem, you can just go into the Alexandria library, look out for This Crazy Kitchen, and you will have a full course from 0 to 100 on how to become a top tier developer in the ecosystem around NFTs. So that's beautiful. And I hope you guys see the value of what Notes and This Crazy Life have made here. We also have a quick resume here. Notes, what can you tell us about this? How can we make a decentralized resume on a project?
Yes. Yeah, so another one that we wanted to just draw attention to really quick that I think that this space and this conference opens up to, right, is the notion of credibility. And we were thinking about what would a Web3 CV look like, basically, right? So we tried to explore what this might mean and what it would actually look like, right? So this asset is a collection of other assets. So it makes reference to other areas of the blockchain. And I think that this is something that really opens up the need for more library scientists and ways of indexing all of the different things. And I think that Cosmos, again, shout out to Adam in the audience in our conference today for thinking about the ways we might index all of these beautiful types of creations that people are doing. So in this case, it's just an overview of some of the things that we did in kind of the first quarter of the year. And it's an asset that references probably over 35 different assets with direct links into them. And this really too started us to start thinking about the ways that the blockchain itself is a library of information.
The first academic publication that I have ever done in my life, and I think it's the same for you, right, Nudes?
Yeah, absolutely. This one is one that's really special to us, and is definitely one that we would say you can't miss if you're looking into the library collections in terms of what blockchain publication might mean for the future. And this is a result of an episode of Cardano High Science where we were in the midst of the podcast with people in the crowd, decided to do an impromptu open source collaborative experiment in terms of some thermodynamic topics. And it really took off, and a lot of people started to get involved from everyone who was in there. And we thought to ourselves, this is a legitimate research study, at least at the very least a pilot study, right, from a very informed and scientific perspective. And this really is what's kind of our keystone driver to thinking about the ways that we might use blockchain to publish academic information. And what's distinct here, you'll see, is that there's a lot of text in this particular asset. And this one is in of itself very distinct because we were able to take the entirety of the study and fit it 100% metadata of the native asset. And this is really kind of a watershed moment for us in thinking about the ways that we're not simply hosting things that are off-chain or referencing verifiably information that might be located somewhere else in a centralized way, but are putting and creating an asset that in of itself contains from start to finish 100% of an academic research study. And so this pilot study is not only topically an exploration in the topic of thermodynamics, but a pilot study in trying to get a full on-chain publication and what that might mean. And the implications of that we feel are quite profound with respect to immutable scholarship and the promises of keeping information alive for future generations.
Absolutely. This asset actually was, in that regard, then the first ever scientific research published directly in a blockchain, and at the level of decentralization that the Cardano blockchain has at this moment, this may very well be the very first academic research to be truly immutable and indestructible in that sense.
Yeah, and it brings a lot of interesting topics about what blockchains are and what they might present, because again, the entirety of the study is located in the metadata kind of thing, right? So any person anywhere in the world who's running a copy of the blockchain itself also too has a version of this research study. And the only way you can take this study now off of the internet anywhere is by destroying that entire blockchain itself. So we wanted to just Right. We just wanted to introduce and just read two quick sections from this study before we talk about some of the broader issues here.
So, for the abstract, cannabis smokers usually present respiratory symptoms due to the harms of smoke, which are related to toxic chemicals and the excessive heat of smoke. In this pilot study, we explore a solution to ease the smoking experience, smoking and then breathing in cold air. Participants were asked to smoke in the usual manner and then to stay in front of the open fridge door and breathe in the cold air. Afterwards, they were asked to compare both experiences with and without cold air. All participants indicated that the cold air intake eased the smoking experience and reduced the itching associated with smoking. Some of the participants also reported being, quote, severely high by the end of the procedure, and this is the first scientific research study to be conducted spontaneously and in real time using global social media networks and then published on a worldwide decentralized public blockchain, Cardano.
And so there's our abstract and the epilogue at the end. We note that the present study recognizes the contributions of Satoshi Nakamoto and the Bitcoin Genesis block as being perhaps the first instance of blockchain publication, where information from a news publication was put into the metadata, where it will remain so long as the network is functional, running, or otherwise recorded in some fashion, including being backed up on another secondary blockchain. And as many of you might know, the famous Genesis blocks is the Times, 03 Jan, Chancellor on the brink, second bailout for banks. So we invite all creative developers to use this perspective to rethink the infinite possibilities of an interoperable future, where different blockchains, much like human languages or dialects, are those that serve their own functional purposes within and across different human communities. Blockchains at their base level are a means to document the history of the universe, our species, and the various understandings of anything and everything in between.
Now, because of the nature of this study, we understand that it may be a little bit controversial, and we can even have a discussion on how valid this type of study is. But what we all have to agree on is that it follows basic scientific method, and it is backed by prior documentation. And the idea of this whole just chilling thing is to start the discussion and to show that it is possible. And that should be the most, the biggest impression that people should take from this home. It is possible to publish a scientific study completely on Cardano metadata. So
And if
now
you
it's
go back,
method. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more note about the pilot study that we did. Again, a creative sort of satirical poke fun at the legacy institution. But if you go back to the asset itself and look at it, you'll see compositionally that it's got a lot going on there. So we have our figures and our tables located at the top. In addition to that, we also too included the PDFs, what we call the legacy document, right? So the ways that we would normally consume a piece of information there, the PDFs. And then in addition to the legacy document, those PDFs contain instructions for people, the metadata templates basically for them. If you wanted to write your own article completely in a JSON file kind of thing, all you need to do is delete our words and put in your own. And in addition to that, we've also included an audio component, thinking about, well, what if we produced academic articles that were audiobooks too? I think would be really interesting. And I know some publishers are working in that regard now, and just trying to really broaden out the diverse ways that people might consume academic literature. So now we're going to continue. So now that we've got the asset and we have all these great things, great, so what do you do with them? You have a million different copies. And we've identified and started talking about in the community with people that we're working with together, different ways of distributing all of this information. If you've got 69 million copies of your amazing published article, how can you get it out into the world? And the first that Adams will mention is airdrops, obviously.
So airdrops are basically, I would say, the most common type of blockchain distribution method, which is what NFTs have us used to, which is basically you get free stuff in your wallet at a certain point. Then we have the faucets that basically allow you to send X amount of certain crypto into a certain address, into a certain smart contract, and it will automatically send back to you whatever it is you are trying to get from it.
And in addition to those, on Cardano, we have a number of different claiming platforms, right? So these are token distribution platforms. And again, we're using fungible tokens here. So they are able to be treated in the same ways that a lot of projects and friends are creating, you know, their utility token or their own native asset or whatever it might be. But ours are academic articles and other pieces of learning information kind of things, right? So airdropping those out using faucet systems, claiming them as well as another way that we have done in our ecosystem, and we'll show you some of the numbers and how that looks in a moment. And then in addition to that, we also too, you know, if you'd like to take the approach, obviously NFT markets are a decentralized option that any publisher might have in terms of sharing their piece of work. And then finally, decentralized exchanges, right? So if you're thinking about native tokens, and fungible tokens is one that in Ethereum we're very used to going to Uniswap or HoneySwap. There's so many great ones, right? And what you're trading is whatever fungible tokens. And with this approach, we've taken it and we've created some swaps where they're trading academic articles for academic articles kind of thing. And this is a really interesting kind of technological innovation that we're really curious and excited to see where it might go. But just thinking about the numbers in terms of those things, the token distribution platforms for us is one that it's available to anybody in the ecosystem. So basically, you just need a wallet, and you can log onto their website, and you can claim one of the assets and send it out. And in just a few months' time, we had over 15,000 people claim this academic article kind of thing, which is like, I also just recently published an article in an open source journal, and it definitely did not get 15,000 people access to that type of information. So you get widespread dissemination of academic literature, which I think is very promising and very interesting, because it's so new, and I think a lot of people are excited to try and check it out. And so the things that we put on some of these platforms, again, have been the scientific research study that we did, our pilot study kind of exploring publication. And in the next one, you'll see that we also, too, did the workshop series as well, right? So it's a fungible token that anybody can get 6 hours of learning material in their wallet. We've gotten over 17,000 distributions on that one as well. So really amazing to see the level of engagement that people have for consuming new types of learning material in meaningful ways. And a lot of people I've heard in spaces and seen other things people are doing, that they're using these in really meaningful ways. Well, you got to check this out. And then they're creating a new project or trying to explore something new in their own regard. So just a reflection of the ways that things might get out there.
Just a quick word there. I think it's also important to notice that this model is not us spamming our work into other people's wallet, but rather organic engagement from the community itself that seeks out and decides what type of asset they want to get. So in that type of sense, it's very much like a subscription model, you could say, but in this case, it is open for all. We actually don't make money out of these distributions, but it could be in the future if someone, for example, is thinking of setting up a company based on this type of blockchain possibilities.
Absolutely. So with some of the things that we did in creating, we're just kind of touches on our last maybe few moments here. We'll take maybe like 5 or 10 minutes just to wrap it up and have some time for questions or conversations if you'd like. But we just wanted to note that we did and try and think about new innovative approaches to academia and Web3. We did something called the Q1 report card, and this is an experiment in decentralized peer review where we shared our article with the community over a Twitter space and invited people to come rate us and give us a grade. We created an assessment spectrum that was ranging from the rocket emoji to all the way to the fire emoji. So out of this world has distinction, average party, hit the books if you needed to really refine things, or a dumpster fire if people wanted to rate us as that. And we collected all of this crowdsourced information from people to rate us via emoji in really interesting and fun ways. And we got some great results in terms of the different thematic content of our library project, as well as more general assessments of our project kind of as a whole, right? For bringing fun to Cardano was one of the fun categories we had there, the project as a whole, but then we also had things like community archives, historical archives, and the like. And this means is, I think, just a really interesting experience and experiment in thinking about how peer review might be structured around something like a DAO, where you have open invitations for communities of people to make their voices be known and do so in a way that is decentralized, public, and accessible for different communities of people, and will result in on-chain record keeping. I think that yesterday we spoke to kind of the archaic nature of the legacy system in terms of how peer review functions. There's always that reviewer number 2 who gives you the bad reviewer, and it's a very much siloed sort of experience. And in these experiences, thinking about new ways to approach that entire institution. And we're really proud and happy to share this work with you today. And it's something that's happening. It's really proliferating and picking up. And we're really happy to see over the last few months, there's a new platform called Book.io that's doing an NFT marketplace for publishers if you'd like to produce your own things. There's Dark Mode Press, which is a great friend of ours that produced a poetry mint from what we shared before, and the Blade of Baz series, which is a friend in our community who's producing each token as a chapter of their book and sharing them out in that way. So it's a really, really exciting time, really engaging time, and I think that the Web3 conference is a great capstone of that to reflect and really look forward with the ways we might try and transform things, But there are definitely challenges. We have some challenges ahead, and Adams, you can speak to those as well.
Sure. Well, what do we have for us in the future? For sure, we have to develop a more user-friendly interface for people to fully explore the collection, which is one of the not so grave but issues that we have found there. It may be a little bit hard to swim across all this vast amount of assets and knowledge. We also have in mind to create an InfoSwap type of DEX platform alongside the help of the DAO community, Summon community, with some sort of take a book, leave a book model. We also want to continue to explore the publication possibilities and set up metric systems for the academic publications we are setting in. For example, impact factor. How can we measure how many citations an on-chain asset has had, how many views it has had, another type of key performance data. Also, of course, and comes naturally or logically after the work we have done, we have to develop a DAO-based system for decentralized academic peer review, as Nuts was discussing just a while before. And with that, I would say we would be into the second stage of what the Alexandria Project is. But up to this point, I have to say that I'm pretty confident that both me and Nuts are very proud of what we have done. And we have also seen that the community, especially the Cardano community, have taken good advantage of what we have done. They have taken for sure good advantage of the workshops that Nuts has made on this type of technology. So it's great to see that we can make a measurable contribution, even when we have still so much to do. We also have a few Project Catalyst proposals just to show that we are pushing forward and what we're working into. Nuts, if you would like to say a few words on this.
Yeah, so I mentioned to Ada Adams yesterday a lot of conversation around Gitcoin and the funding mechanisms, and we just wanted to celebrate and give flowers to people innovating and making proposals in that regard. In Cardano, we don't have Gitcoin, we have Project Catalyst, which is part of our funding mechanism, the ecosystem. The fees, like transaction fees, basically go into a decentralized treasury, and then people make proposals, and you can fund the future of the ecosystem based on those. So we just wanted to note that we have some things related to the Alexandria Project that we're going to get the results of our applications for this week. So knock on wood, hoping for the best. And some of those are very specified projects. Particularly, I'm proposing to do one with my own research community that are some of my greatest friends in life, to help some of their local businesses using native assets in these ways, kind of, right? So what we're presenting here is a great overview or kind of an introduction, thinking about immutable scholarship and ways that enduring information can be enduring throughout generations, particularly when it's on-chain and it takes the destruction of the entire network in order to stop those types of things, right? And this might be particularly useful for scholars at risk, which we recognize as a really important area that Web3 presents to the possibilities of the future of human expression, in particular cases where people's voices or ability to make those investigations or statements might be at risk because of different political or whatever circumstantial positions they might be in, right? So we feel like it's really applicable for those particular types of area, as well as endangered types of information, as I mentioned, in relation to my own doctoral dissertation work. So some of the promising prospects of these, but all things are, not just a rosy future. I think it's important to recognize the implications of using immutable ledgers for things like historical information as well, right? So we're trying to think very early before major institutions like different state governments who may have some bad actors. For example, if they want to put their particular version of history in an immutable way that other people in different nations around the world might not have the technological literacy to even have a chance to oppose those types of things, right? So trying to think forward and be forward thinking now about if you can have immutable scholarship, immutable histories, well then of course the question is raised, whose history is it and what the implications of that longevity might mean. And we think that's a very essential conversation to have moving forward. But it's been amazing to be here, and thank you everyone so much for stopping by. Great to kick off the conference day 2. We have I think about a little under 10 minutes. So if anyone wanted to chime in with any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, again, thank you so much on behalf of us both for being here today.
Thank you all for your attention. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. Once again, thanks Bella for the invitation and for making everything happen. It has worked perfectly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for both of you being here. It's been so informative, and I knew that there was a lot of stuff that was already going on within the Alexandria Project just because watching all of the different tweets and the information that's coming in through your guys' feeds, but I had no idea even myself just how extensive it was because like you get on in the QR code and it's like information, you know, and where do you start, right? So this is like an amazing breakdown. But there have been a couple of questions because we have multiple channels for the conference. And so we had one come in through Meetup, which is a little bit vague, like how do you take this information and apply it to the current academic institutions, like what you guys have already done? Have you built any bridges around that with institutions, or have people approach you from institutions? And then we had another question from Twitter that was asking about what areas of the Alexandria Library or the projects have been more engaging for people? Because like I know, you know, academic librarians, and they have this pulse on their library, right? And who's doing research and where do they need to like build the collection more and things like that. So two very, very different questions, but you know, take it away.
I will take the first one, Notes, if you want, and you can go with the second one.
Yeah, take whichever one,
more explanatory on what you have done for the workshops, for example. For the first part, I think that one of the crucial parts here is to actually have traditional institutions recognize and learn about the potential of blockchain technology, which is something that for the past 10 years or so has been very, very difficult. But for the last 2 years or so, we have seen an increasing number of, for example, academics trying to work into this Web3 space, a growing number of institutions offering courses, for example, for graduate courses on blockchain technology, normally more dedicated on the side of finances, but this already opens the door for other areas of academia to say, hey, maybe we could also secure chemistry data in here. Maybe we could also secure physics contributions from the past in here. What if we had one single asset that keeps all the information of nuclear physics of the last 15 years in just one single asset? That is a possibility that has to be explored. And for that, I do think we should try to onboard as many universities and higher education institutions as possible.
Yeah, I think there's tons of potential that we could have. And, you know, I had to give a shout out to my friend Rod G. I think he's in the house right now. And he's also, too, someone who's been really innovative in this regard in terms of ways of using the possibilities of Web3 directly in the classroom types of things, right? So it's entirely possible. And I thought about doing it this semester, but it's my first round of adjunct teaching at the institution I'm at. So I didn't want to really come guns blazing with, hey, look at this cool new technology. But I thought I was going to put my entire course inside a native asset because it's possible to do kind of thing, right? So we use Blackboard, which is like a very kind of dated. It's been around for a long time, and there's great aspects of Blackboard for sure. But it's also possible at the same time that I could take a native asset and basically mint my entire class in a single one-stop solution. I could just have a QR code, and then every reading, every discussion question, every piece of ancillary sort of engaging information would be something that I could make. And and in a world where it would be less controversial to have students have a wallet, I could simply airdrop them my entire course if need be, right? And so there's a potential for that, and I think we're just we're still in a stage where we're trying to open these conversations and explore the possibilities. So thank you for that one. I think that the applications of it are quite numerous, and we're really supportive of any and all people pushing things forward in that regard. And then with respect to which areas will be engaging, I think Bella mentioned a really interesting and important point about library scientists are experts in the fields of understanding curated collections and the levels of engagement in the ways that they become meaningful over time. And how do you really quantify that and shape the future composition of a collection of information based on those observations? And that's something that we have not excelled in, other than the ways that we've seen products from people and the things that they've done. So again, the workshops I think are perhaps the most engaging areas and all the learning tools that people have. So it's provided a lot of opportunities for people to learn to do things for the first time, and the proof of that is also inside their wallet. And so we have almost a blockchain history of the ways that those learning materials have propagated over time, and there's the an indexical relationship between those different blockchain publications.
Right. Also, you have to take into account that many of the assets we have in the library at the moment was at some point related with some kind of Twitter event or meetup or conversation or something, and probably those types of assets logically will have more streams, so to say. So that's also something to factor in.
I don't know about you guys, but already all conference long, I keep thinking to myself, where are all of the researchers? Because there's already so much data, and it's like, we need you to come in and help us sort this data so that these tools and these systems, or social engagement mechanisms can be understood, because they're already out there, they're already operating, there's entire libraries being built of them. And the questions are really valid, like how do you apply what they already are doing within software and within librarian systems, and what they need to know, because that's how they get their budgets, that's how they allocate funding towards new innovations within just even the librarian science, right? But if we already have this whole on chain where they can see everything, that's where the researchers come in. So I for one am really looking forward to a lot more research funding starting to come through the DAOs, because I'm seeing it start to happen in decentralized science and kind of more of the nuances around academia and education. But really, if you know a researcher, you are one, like the pool is great, step in, because like we need the data to be monitored.
I totally agree with what you're saying in terms of that. And the resistance, I think, for our space in many regards is precisely because of what you mentioned, that there are these standard mechanisms that they have to measure engagement that already exist. And there's not yet a bridge towards a blockchain environment kind of thing. And I noticed this, if you're familiar with the band Good Charlotte, Billy Martin is the bassist of that band. And he's like super active on Twitter in our space, and he's like creates a bunch of different projects. And I've talked to him a bunch of times about like, why don't you just release like the whole catalog of Good Charlotte, like on the blockchain, and make it like your whole discography, do like a 10-year reunion or something like that. And what you said is precisely the reason, not only because of the intellectual copyright issues associated with that band, but like the legacy platforms are resistant because they can't measure engagement in the ways that they're used to, right? And effectively monetize it. But what do you know? Blockchain excels, if not for anything else, in accounting for how information circulates and for the ways that things might be shared among things like wallets. So much potential, and your perspective, Bella, I think is completely on point.
We're starting it here, right? That was my intention. This is where we get into the rich depth of what's already out there and help other educators understand so that we can keep creating those bridges. So thank you so much to both of you being here and helping people understand just exactly how much you've already accumulated, you've been doing, you've been testing, how they can get their minds working. How does this apply to what I'm doing, what I would like to do? Around education or academia or just Web3 and communities.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your patience and time. See you soon.
There are many things to look forward to in 2023 with our community. The first is the Web3C DAO and applications which will be open in early spring of 2023 to help govern the future events and products that we offer our community. The next is the Academic Web3 Conference in May of 2023, bringing the heads of tech and Web3 together with the whole academic ecosystem, administrators, students, professors, to find new ways to innovate and